What's up guys, and we're back to another What If on What If Deku is transported to danmachi part 8. Now, before we jump into this What If, we're going to start off by shouting out the people who had joined my Discord in between videos. We got Shift Lord Panda, Nazi, Bruhman, and Silver DXS. Thank you all for joining the Discord, and if y'all want to join the Discord, it's down in the link in the description down below. Click it, join. We're awesome there. We play games together. Like just earlier today, we were playing Among Us. So yeah, join it. Have some fun. Now let's jump straight into this What If. Aiz was walking throughout the streets. She had to run an errand after splitting off with Deku. She ended up making it back towards the mansion. She was looking for Riverdale and Leafia so they can help her understand her current grievances with her feelings. Eventually, she ended up entering the mansion and saw the two elves studying together in the library. After entering there, Riverdale was kind of surprised seeing how Aiz tended to not enter the library. Even though she liked stories, she didn't tend to like to read them. Eventually, Aiz had sat down and waited for Riverdale to finish reading the chapter in the book she was reading. Before Riverdale asked, "So Aiz, what brings you to the library?" And then Aiz said, "Well, you see, I have an issue and I was wondering if you could help me figure it out." Riverdale and Leafia both look kind of confusingly because Aiz tends to almost never have issues that she can't resolve, and the ones she have are more troublesome, to say the least. Riverdale decided that she would help Aiz after a little bit of pushing from Leafia. Eventually, Aiz started to explain how the event went with Izuku. She explained while the event went pretty normally, she felt kind of weird, which confused most of the personnel there. Eventually, Aiz ended up stating that during the adventure with Izuku, she felt a new feeling inside herself, which was a shocking thing towards almost anyone else, really, because Aiz feeling something else was kind of weird. Eventually, after Aiz started to explain how it made her chest feel uneasy and stuff, Revelia almost laughed in the statements that Aiz was making. And she eventually said, "Aiz, yes, Revelia? It's not... how do I explain this? It's not that you are feeling anything wrong or anything of the sort. It's more that you just don't know what you're feeling." "So what am I feeling, Riverdale?" "You're feeling an emotion called love." "Love?" "Yes. And it's kind of silly how you haven't felt it already. You would think you would feel it over some time. Or at least over a period of time. But seeing how you apparently haven't, which wouldn't make a lot of sense, it was still quite funny. So, love, as you paraphrase it, but it feels different than what I feel for almost everyone else in the family. See, the love you're experiencing," Riverdale started, because Leafia was almost clearly knocked out after hearing that Aiz fell in love with someone and that someone wasn't her. Riverdale started to explain, stating that the love she was feeling was a different type of love, which confused Aiz even greater. Eventually, Riverdale went on to state that the love Aiz was feeling was more akin to a romantic involvement, which knocked out the recently awakened Leafia again, rather than the familiar arrangement. What does that mean? For example, what you feel towards me and most likely most people in the familia is known as family love. Now, family love is not the same as romantic love. Romantic love is the feeling that you currently were just explaining to us, much to the dismay of Leafia. Is that a bad thing? No, it's not a bad thing at all. Actually, quite the contrary. It's probably a really good thing for you. It shows that you're growing emotionally and mentally. I was still kind of confused about this, not really knowing how to respond to it. Hearing Revelia just say that love was just a common thing of life and that it was probably something that she'll get used to was kind of shocking. Aiz almost couldn't believe it herself. Eventually, Aiz decided that to ask what happens with love. Well, Aiz, you see, when love happens, very commonly, the thing that happens afterwards comes at more of a very entailing step. What happens afterwards? Well, you see, more than this likely, if Izuku feels the same about you as you do to it, you guys could find yourself in a relationship. A relationship? Aiz began to wonder. As Revelia starts to explain, yes, a relationship similar or akin to boyfriend and girlfriend. Oh. Well then. And that means we're romantically involved, correct? Yes, Aiz. Boyfriends and girlfriends and farther down the line, married couples tend to be way more involved than anyone else. And there's a very simple reasoning for that. Okay, what's the reasoning? Well, you see, Aiz, for the simplest reason that romantic involvement leads to stronger bonds, and stronger bonds tends to be leading to increased strength on both parties' behalf. Wait, increased strength on both parties' behalf? This was something Aiz was interested in. She already knew about her feelings towards Izuku were, as what Revelia put it, romantic. So the pure aspect that she heard that having romantic feelings towards someone could help boost her own strengths made Aiz happy. She was pretty excited to find out about what she could do to help Izuku. I started to think about stuff more and more inside of her head, finding her excitement to be harder to contain. She then thanked Revelia and then quickly left. Now we flash back to Izuku, who had just woken up after sleeping throughout the night. Or flash forward to Izuku. After Izuku had woken up, he ended up walking out. He decided to enter the dungeon again earlier, and this time woke up way earlier than usual. Especially because he wanted to catch up with Aiz as well as Revelia and Leafia, thinking that all of them will end up entering the dungeon together. Thinking it would be a rather pleasant experience to hang out with Aiz again. Deku really didn't know Revelia as much, even though he does still occasionally talk to her to help increase his magic and understand magic more. Especially after the whole black hole incident that happened the day prior. Izuku ended up waking up early. But none of the girls seemed to be present at the house by the time he woke up, which kind of distraughted Izuku. He thought he woke up pretty early too, but it seems like the girls had woken up even earlier. Izuku started to think of ways that he could quickly get to the dungeon. The dungeon wasn't too far off, but it was far enough off to where it would be relatively slow for Izuku to end up making there without any well, assistance, to say the least. Izuku ended up looking around at everything and started to try to think of spells he could use. Izuku knew that black hole worked, and he knew that gods existed here. Now, the god aspect was kind of a weird aspect, because he didn't want just to be chanting random names of random gods. So he decided against it, especially because gods were actual human beings here, or not humans, god beings here, which still kind of confused Izuku on what a god was counted as. Eventually, Izuku was thinking of multiple different gods, and seeing how Loki didn't know a god of space, Izuku remembered a show he once watched. The show was weird. It was about phones and phones that can predict the future, and it was like a murder game. Izuku had watched it mainly just because he found the main character to be kind of relatable. He quoted every single thing he saw to excellent degree in accuracy, which Izuku could always commend him for, seeing how he did very similar things when he was, well, quoting quirks other heroes and personnel had. So Izuku liked the boy, but he remembered that there was a god that they were all trying to become, Deus Ex Machina, and he was the god of space and time. Izuku started to chant, "Let the distance in between two spaces be close enough to where I can instantaneously transport. Hereby I chant the name of Deus Ex Machina," as he randomly just teleports instantaneously in front of the dungeon, spooking some of the adventurers that were already there and quite accurately annoyed by Izuku's shenanigans of just teleporting straight in, but commended the young boy for having teleportation magic. It was a very rare thing, and, well, rarer than most people believed. And Izuku was kind of shocked that it had just worked just like that. Finding that he had a catalyst name for any space-type spells, and seeing how time-type spells still kind of weighed down on him a little bit, and tons of other things still messed him up a lot, Izuku decided against it. He was thinking of personnel with enhanced body quirks. Other than All Might and him himself, he could think of a hero that was in America. The hero for some reason disappeared and, well, has largely gone unseen. But the hero's name was Overclock. Overclock's quirk was kind of a unique one. He could overclock his body. Of course, this made his body way weaker and could easily cause Izuku injuries if he wasn't using it sparingly, but he decided if it was to find eyes in the girls, that he would do it. Mainly just because he wanted to talk and chill, as well as defeat some monsters, and defeating monsters solo isn't really an entertaining thing to do, especially when they're very easy to defeat. Izuku knew that he wasn't just defeating monsters just to defeat them, or just to get stronger. He knew that there was reasonings behind everything he does, but decided that even then, if he accidentally goes down into a mind down position, it would still be better to have someone, if anyone, there to help assist him. Izuku then decided to instantaneously chant a spell that was based off of Overclock's Overclock's quirk. This heightened his reaction speed, which didn't seem to actually have much damaging effects on his physical body. Much to the contrary, seems to have a damaging effect on his mental strain. So Izuku could only use it for so long, but everything while he used it seemed to be slowed down, relatively so much slower than anything else he's seen, which made Izuku slightly excited. Deciding that he would like to test out his new capabilities, Izuku ended up quickly going down into a dungeon. After quickly surpassing the 13th to 14th floor, he ended up finding some monsters that were relatively easy to take out. Izuku ended up activating his ability to see just how slowly the monsters moved. And to Izuku's surprise, they moved so slowly it almost seemed like they weren't moving at all, which kind of got Izuku even more excited, realizing that this spell had greatly, and by greatly means very greatly, heightened his reaction time, so much to the point where everything else seemed slow. Izuku's base physical stats alone were pretty heightened, but now it's almost like he could move before anyone could even react. Almost no attack would be useful against him. Even an arrow that was shot at him at point blank range, Izuku could probably dodge without an issue, or a bullet itself. Izuku found this to be a really cool ability, and like that, it barely costed him anything. The mental strain was there, which kinda sucked, but it wasn't too much to really affect Izuku nearly as much as he thought it would. Eventually, Izuku ended up looking around trying to see if there was anything else that was nearby him that could allow him to quickly and easily take care of anything else. Izuku found that there was nothing of the sort, which kind of disappointed him. He ended up going down to the 17th floor and was once again disappointed to see that the Goliath still hadn't respawned. He knew that the other adventurers in the guild say responded every 3 months, which is the reason why they took expeditions every 3 months to not only go down deeper into the dungeon, but also aligns with multiple other events that would be going on that would be hosted primarily by the gods. Izuku was then thinking, so if a world like this exists, where magic and stuff exists, does everything exist? Izuku thought it was kind of weird how a god of forging didn't know what a gun was. Seeing how a gun is, at base, an item that can be forged, especially the earlier versions of rifles, like the muskets, Izuku was kind of surprised. Izuku was then thinking that maybe gods of forging can't forge anything that humans themselves haven't forged, or a sentient species hadn't forged. Which, when Izuku thought about it, really made him wonder. Izuku then was thinking about multiple other things that seemed to be weird limitations of gods. If a god would be all-knowing, especially a god of intelligence would be all-knowing, then why were so many gods seem to be in the dark about certain things? Izuku decided that he should probably ask Loki about it, thinking that Loki would be able to answer some of his questions, seeing how Loki was the only one who really knew that he was from a different world, other than Finn, which knew as well. Oh, and Ina. Izuku also thought about Ina and decided that maybe he should go check in on her. Seeing how she was his dungeon advisor, even though Izuku really didn't think it was necessary to check in anymore, he still thought that maybe there might be some merit to worth of checking in. Izuku ended up not thinking about the idea too much as he continued venturing deeper and deeper. Sadly, throughout the day, Izuku hadn't seen anyone at all, and had come back and returned back to the manor. By the time he returned back, he had learned that as Revelia and Leafia, all 3 of them didn't even enter the dungeon today. Much to his dismay, it seemed that they had just gone out to do some girl shopping, which kind of confused Izuku. He really didn't picture Az to be the type that wanted to do shopping, much less girly type shopping. He decided he wouldn't push her about it, but found the whole entire incident to be kind of confusing and weird. Izuku eventually ended up walking around. It was very chill and peaceful in the, quiet town of Aurelio. Eventually, Izuku ended up thinking about town that he was from and everything else, which almost brought a slight tear to his eye. When he got back to the mansion, Izuku saw eyes in a new, pristine white dress, which almost made his mouth drop right then and there. If not for his ability to, thankfully, almost kind of conceal his emotions, Izuku didn't know what would have happened. He would have probably instantaneously right then and there just dropped dead. Aiz looked at Izuku looking at her and felt kind of proud about it, which was very weird for Aiz herself, because she really usually didn't care about what other guys had thought about her. But just seeing Izuku look at her with eyes of amazement made her feel, well, more relieved. It made her feel more powerful in a sense, like she had impressed or done something that was better than anything a god could do, which confused Aiz once more. Eventually, Izuku's jaw-dropped expression fixed itself, and he complimented Aiz on her clothing choice, saying that it made her look very amazing and beautiful. This caused Aiz to slightly blush, reminding herself about the whole entire factor that she thinks that she actually loves Izuku, and thought about a relationship with Izuku. But while thinking about this, she was interrupted quickly by a little blonde-haired elf. Leafia had also complimented Aiz, which Aiz thanked her for a compliment. Eventually, Deku ended up eating dinner while sitting next to Aiz, while Aiz and him talked about their different adventures. Izuku explained how he had been down in the dungeon actually searching for the three girls, primarily Aiz herself. While Aiz explained how they had went clothes shopping because of Leafia wanting to get new clothes, which Izuku asked Leafia if she got what she wanted. And Leafia said that she did, and that she thought it looked very beautiful as she looked towards Aiz. Izuku, miraculously picking up on what Leafia meant, understood that this had been more of a setup to get Aiz in some beautiful clothing than he would have really imagined. But what he didn't know is that Leafia had basically been the scapegoat for Aiz to not tell Izuku that she was the one who actually decided to want to go shopping. Eventually afterwards, Izuku wanted to go to bed and laid down. He really wasn't thinking much about his home and more thought about Aiz. It seemed like the girl had been enveloping his thoughts more recently than he had expected. Eventually, Izuku was finally able to drift off to sleep. And that's where I'm going to leave this what if off. If you guys like it, hit the like button. If you guys enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button. And until next time, goodbye.